Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Game Time Podcast. We've got a very special episode for you guys today. We have been hinting that we've got some guests coming on the pod, and you can say this is the first of many guests that we're going to have here today on the Game Time Podcast. We've got Cascade Hoops Talk in the building with us today. Bill, it is good to have you on. And before, obviously, we've got Daryl and Ramon here, my co-hosts, along for the Game Time Podcast. But Bill, if you want, can you kind of give us an introduction and for some of the people that haven't checked you out on Cascade Hoops, kind of talk about your experience in covering college hoops and the NAIA and your podcast as well.
So Cascade Hoops Talk, this will be my 7th season coming up. I grew up a small college basketball fan. When I retired, I'm an old guy. When I retired, men need to stay busy. I had a harebrained idea to start a podcast. Honestly, I didn't think it'd work, but I sent out a few emails to some coaches, got them, interviewed them. People seem to like it, and it's really grown. So the show is Monday through Friday. I release it first thing in the morning every weekday, reviewing what's going on in the NAI in the top 25 and in each conference that was in action the night before. And then we travel to as many games as we can. In fact, I'll be out in Indiana next year, up at Grace College and up at Huntington as well. And then every season we go back to Kansas City and we cover that thing wire to wire. Last season we did, this last tournament, we did 26 interviews while we were there and a ton of post-championship interviews. It was a lot of fun. So it's just a passion of mine. It's just a hobby. And I just love small college basketball and everything that goes with it.
And I would agree with you. You know, being at IU East, I've gotten the chance to kind of fall in love with the NAIA. And I want to ask you, what makes NAIA basketball so special? What makes it a premier league for people to go to, whether that's high school recruits or kids coming up from JUCO, or even kids that may need to take a step back from the higher level and kind of reset and find their ground at this level that is the NAIA?
Well, for the student athlete, it's a level that really emphasizes the student athlete. A lot of competition on the floor, but there's a lot of competition between programs and conferences for GPA. So that's a big draw to me. What really drew me to NAI basketball is you get to know the families and the coaches and the players. It's like a guy, if a guy goes to, College of Idaho,
Mm-hmm.
that's like, if you're in Caldwell, Idaho, I mean, you're a big star. You're the biggest star in town,
Yeah.
and it's just a smaller culture, not for everybody, but a very strong family atmosphere at every NAI school I've been to.
No, I would agree with you. I think IU East, it's a smaller knit group, but it's one of the most watched teams in the conference, the River States Conference to be exact.
Yeah.
I've been told time and time again, from other coaches in the conference, they love what me and my broadcast
Yep.
partner Nakori do. So it's good to get that love and recognition. But my co-hosts are here as well. We've got Ramon and Daryl in the building here today. So fellas, I want to let you guys get some questions off as well. For this first episode where we've got Cascade Hoops with us, fellas, I'll go ahead and give you the floor.
Hey Bill, so this is Kai here. My question is this: so when you talked about when you after you retired, you felt like you needed to find something to do. What
Mhm.
drove you to the NAIA, and from that perspective, what has it surprised you, and what has been exactly what you thought it would be?
Oh, that's a great question. So, what drew me to the NAI is I grew up in a small town with where Oregon Tech is, and so that was my exposure to college athletics. And so I followed NAI basketball virtually my whole life. So it was kind of a no brainer, if you know what I mean. It just uh, it was all it had always been my passion. Excuse me. Uh, what surprised me was just the access and just how well, first off, the access that programs give me. I was kind of surprised by that. I thought it would be a little more difficult, but every time I meet a player, like in a post game interview or something, I'm always just I shouldn't say it, but I'm always surprised at just how well spoken, how polite that they are. People talk. I'm sorry, I got this frog.
You're all good.
But people talk all the time about the lost generation. We hear it all the time, and I'm an old guy. I say it too. But boy, doing this, Cot, has really renewed my faith in the younger generation because I've met some just amazing young men through my interviews and got to be friends with them.
Well, that's pretty good. I like hearing that. That's what I kind of wanted to hear anyway. But the follow up to that, my second question, then I'll defer back to Ramon after this. Name some of the players that you've encountered that maybe we've heard about, some maybe that maybe we need to hear about, and some of your experiences on a maybe a week over week basis when it came to those interviews and introducing yourself to those players.
Well, you guys are all aware of Kyle Mangus. He played at Indiana Wesleyan. He was in the Pacer organization for a while. He's over in the San Antonio G League now. An amazing, amazing young man. In fact, my show at the end of the year, I call it the Billy D Awards. I talked to Kyle and he gave me permission to do a Kyle Mangus Award because he plays the game right. Also, Jake O'Neill, who played at College of Idaho, one of the hardest players I ever watched. He went to Idaho State last season, and he almost averaged a double-double. The head coach at UCLA said he played harder than anybody he ever watched. He did there's just all I'm not sure I could do justice to the players that I've met, but those are just two examples of just some great people. Another guy, Drew Wyman, another College of Idaho guy, he's going to go be a doctor, one of the best players in the country. You just couldn't meet a better person, a great student, a great person. There's a long list, Scott.
That's good. That's good to hear. Definitely, for sure. I like that. I like hearing those names because you want to start thinking about those guys as we go down the path. So definitely, for sure. Ramon, I'll defer to you if you got a couple for him.
I don't really have a question, but I got a thought. I want to make sure I'm gonna run it by you, see if you agree with this. My son played Division I football, ended his career playing NAIA football. What I learned or observed during his two and a half years there is that NAIA sports kind of weeded out the kids who were just playing it for the lights and the cameras and the action versus the kids who really loved the sport and want to be part of the game. You know, I got a chance to see a big divide. Like, hey, these guys who really loved football, because that's what my son played, stayed, enjoyed, fellowship, family. And the guys who were there just for the clicks, the retweets, the Instagram, the praise, left real quick. I wonder if you saw some of that.
Oh, definitely. I think what you say is one of the keys I was talking about at the start. That's part of that family thing. I call it the purest form of sports out there. These are truly student athletes. They're, like you say, they're there for the love of the game. They do enjoy the crowd atmosphere, but instead of 12,000, they may have 500 there. But it's still, they're there to football or basketball is a vehicle toward their education versus they're doing the education so they can keep playing basketball or football. I think that's kind of what you're saying as well.
So, go ahead.
To piggyback on that, we talked about 500 to maybe 5,000 versus 8,000 to 80,000, right? So you're talking about a lot of these are people who are familiar with these young men, and how they respond is really critical. To that point, those kids are saying, "This is my vehicle," like you said, to my next piece of my life. Not this is going to be my big lottery ticket. And then what it does, it molds those young men and women to be the type of character young people that their parents probably hoped they would be anyway. And it helps build that character piece. So some of the there's some great stories, I'm sure. I'm sure there's some heart-wrenching stories as well where kids thought they would maybe be a D1 player or something along those lines, and they got a little bit of humble pie, but then turn into a great story. Do you have any of those that you could think of that a young man thought or a young lady thought they were going to be maybe a D1? It didn't happen, but it all worked out for the greater good anyway.
One of my favorite redemption stories is Robbie Wilson. He grew up in Arizona. I'm sure he won't mind me telling the story. He told the story on my show one time, but he was a great football player in high school. I think he went to a D2 school, but his plan was to be a big time football player. Yeah, 18-year-old kid goes off to school on scholarship, does what a lot of kids do, makes some mistakes. School doesn't work out. He has to go back home with his tail between his legs, if you will, uh, and ends up going to a community college. Thought he was started playing football there, didn't really enjoy football as much. Somebody called him into a basketball pickup game, and the coaches are like, you need to come over here and play basketball. Well, long story short, Robbie goes to Arizona Christian, one of the top NAI schools in the country, and has just a phenomenal career. Makes the Final Four, the Final Eight, and now he's been the assistant women's coach at Washington, and now he's back at Arizona Christian as the assistant coach there. But you talk about guys who play hard. He was a big guy. I always said he ran up and down the court like he was being chased by lions. But it was truly a story of redemption where he went and kind of lost himself and came back and found himself.
I like that. It's good. It's good to know those stories are still out there, because oftentimes those stories end in a non-positive way, and that's what you hear about. You see the young man in a compromising situation. So I love to hear those stories. Definitely, thank you for that one. I like that a lot.
So the next kind of topic we want to get into, and this is something we've talked about on the podcast before, and we've talked about it at length. I believe in the wraparound segment mostly, is NIL and the transfer portal. Bill, that's been a big thing going on, not only for just the NCAA, but also the NAIA. The NAIA. I always mess that up sometimes. But what we've been talking about, and Ramon can attest to this, is the trickle down effect that it has had in college sports. And I think one of the big quotes that I brought up on this podcast was Rick Pitino. I don't know if you saw the quote, but he said, we're not recruiting high school kids, we're recruiting college kids, because we have to replace this 20-point per game scorer. We have to replace this 15-point per game scorer. And it's making it harder for kids to be recruited. It's an interesting time in college sports right now. We've been talking about ways to tweak the NIL system so it better affects the levels below it. How have you seen NIL affect the NAIA, and what do you think could be done to not completely go away with the system? Because I've always been one of the people that say the players should get paid, if they're at that top level, but how can it be tweaked to where it's not affecting the leagues below?
Well, honestly, Isaiah, I'm not sure how it's number one. I don't think it's going to be tweaked. I mean, you got the courts involved. You've got, a lawsuit being settled. I think the tweaking is going to happen with the NAI, at least, is with coaches who are still trying to figure out how they build their teams. Mm-hmm. So, do they, if you look at the, their players going up, I mean, do they continue to recruit? Because most NA, not all NAI programs, but most are primarily built with 4-year players.
Yep.
But now the more are getting poached, and then I don't know if that's the good word for it, but that's what it is.
It's true.
And so, do they go back more to JC and pick up guys, or do they continue to build the 4-year guys and just continue to take the chance? So that you see a couple of different schools of thought, and you watch these schools and how they're reacting. For the most part, schools are continuing to go with the high school kid. And the reason for that is because the high school kids aren't getting that phone call that they did, say, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
Because like you just said, why would you go out and get a high school kid, unless he's a top 50? Why would you go out and get a high school kid if you can get a guy who's, either won a national championship or play All-American at the NAI level and proven themselves? And that's where they're going. They're going to the guys who prove themselves. So the high school kids, and I mentioned this to you one day on the phone. I see rosters like College of Idaho. These are the ones I'm most familiar with. I just saw Eastern Oregon. They have now I think a 4A player of the year, a 5A player of the year. Oregon Tech's roster this year will consist entirely
Yep, you told me
of
this.
5A and 6A all-state players. Entirely. You never, I mean, when I was a young guy following NAIA basketball, if your team picked up an all-conference player, that was a good get.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you don't have all-staters at the highest level, some of the best players in the state, you're not going to compete. So that's really been a change where both players coming out of high school and coaches have had to adapt. I think as far as what can you do to there's no, I don't think there's any avenue to do that because it is what it is. It is. That's my thought.
Ramon, you talked about a couple weeks ago on the pod where you wanted to start this class at Washington for the parents there to kind of get them in the know about college recruitment and how that stuff works. Can you go into more detail about that, or bring it up to the viewers that may have missed that part of the episode?
Yeah, we're gonna start the class for not only our parents at George Washington, but
Hey Ramon, your mic's acting up. He's gonna fix that real quick. Daryl, while Ramon fixes that, is there anything you wanted to bring up to Bill about regarding the NIL system?
Well, just kind of the I guess the genesis of it, right? I know there was always talk about get these guys a couple of $100. They can't go get a pizza. That there's that Chris Webber talk when his jersey was selling for $200 in the Michigan bookstore, but he's out there trying to get brown bag money, right? Just kind of talk a little bit about the genesis of the NIL piece and what you've seen firsthand when it came out, and your thoughts regarding that.
Well, I mentioned this to you earlier, but in my opinion, it came about because the NC2A ignored it.
Mm-hmm.
This was a bomb waiting to happen, and they ignored it at their peril. And this is where we are because they just ignored it. So, it's been a little bit of the wild, wild west, especially how these NILs are being handled. And now with the revenue sharing, I mean, who knows how that's going to turn out. But I believe that since it's all still being negotiated through this House settlement, I believe at the end of the day, it will all be much more controlled than it would if the NC2A would have tried to fix it themselves, because they don't fix things, they break things. And but there's going to be a few years here where it's going to be really difficult for people to figure out what's going on. How many people know that the rosters are going to be limited? Probably very, very few, for example.
Yeah.
And they also think there's tons of money for everybody. There's tons of money for the top guys, but if you're at the bottom end, you might get a couple thousand or a few thousand. You're not going to get rich.
Yeah. Daryl, Ramon, I do want to go back to you. I think it looks like you got the mic situation figured out. Can you go back into that? I think you call it the parent playbook, is what you called it in the last episode. Can you kind of talk about that? And I definitely want to get Bill's thoughts about that and just how high school kids why NAIA basketball or football would be a good resource for them and not all rush to D1.
Initially, it's going to start with the parent playbook for football. All right. And it's going to embody a bunch of different things. We're going to teach the parents what they're seeing on Friday night, from the coin toss to the end of the game. But we're also going to talk about what they should expect from a 7-day work week preparing for Friday night. All right. So they'll be educated on what we're asking their child to do, both physically, football-wise, and academically, attendance-wise, and community, et cetera. Then they're going to be educated on what they're seeing on Friday nights. So we won't have some of those uncomfortable parent meetings. They're kind of educated on what they're seeing. All right. And then it's going to go deeper into how do we prepare them before and after high school football, what they should be doing in middle school to prepare, how they should be marketing themselves on X and Instagram and social media platforms. How should you talk and respond to college recruiters? How you should reach out and talk to college guys for yourself and not wait for your high school coach or athletic director, whoever, to initiate those things. You have to be proactive in your recruitment. You have to be intentional in your development and in your want to play at the next level. Then we're going to talk about, the elephant in the middle, money, and the expectation of getting it or not getting it. And then the expectation that comes from or behind if you do receive that big lump sum of money. And the rules that come with it. Like we talked about the roster space, how it's being manipulated. At some point you'll look, especially at the D1 level, and you think that you have more roster room than you actually have. The ability that most of these things are one-time resignable scholarships that after that 1 year, they can bring in that office and say, hey, this ain't working. You may want to jump in that portal. Most parents think that the kid is the one that's initiating the portal, but it could go both ways. You can jump in there or they can put you in there. And so they have to understand that. They have to understand that the media only reports the great things that happen in the portal. This guy transferred to Ohio State. This guy transferred to that team up north, or this guy transferred to Alabama. But they don't talk about the 40, 50% that get stuck in the portal and end up either going down a level, losing scholarship money, or the next thing you know, they're like, welcome to Walmart. That's in aisle 4. Mm-hmm. So, we want to educate them on all of that.
No, I think that's not only a good idea, that's necessary. One of the things I do outside of the podcast, as I said, I'm a big Oregon Tech fan. I follow Oregon Tech. I sit on the foundation board. I've been involved with Oregon Tech as a university for my whole life. But one of the things I do, since I'm a fan and I travel with the team and stuff, is I get to know all the parents and talk to them about, well, this is how we travel. This is generally, where we sit. This is the other parents. So the whole, I love what you're saying, because I believe that the parent piece is ignored. And so that's especially like what to expect. So I like that idea.
And I think, and I think even when you look at some of these players, and I say kids, I'm the same age as them, but I think there's this rush to get to the next level as quickly as possible, right? You go to, player A commits to this school and he plays good for 1 year in the NAIA, and then he's like, all right, I want to get to the next level, and then the next level. I feel like, and we talked about it a little bit, I think last week, you should sit and wait and play out a couple years in the NAIA or that Division II in the NCAA, because come that senior year or even that graduate year, that's when D1 schools will most likely take a look at you if you're trying to get to that D1 level, because then you even take into account the JUCO kids that if the JUCO kids do get into D1, they get a fresh 4 years now. So it's just high school kids are already starting from a disadvantage. And I think we have to show people and athletes that it's okay to take that step back and maybe not start where you want to, because at this point coaches and especially college coaches want to see a more seasoned player that has played a little bit. And even if you stay in the NAIA or that second level of the NCAA for all your years, you can still go overseas, and even the slight chance of going pro, but you can go overseas based off what you did in the NAIA and make some good money overseas.
Isaiah, there's a bit of advice. I'm an old guy. I like to give old man advice. There's a bit of advice I give to every young person I run into. And it applies here as well, is I always tell them, if you want a better job, start by doing the one you have exceedingly well. Mm-hmm. Good things will happen when you do that. If that's your focus, good things will occur. If you're not satisfied and you act unsatisfied, none of those good things are going to happen. So do your job that you have now exceedingly well. They're not always thrilled to hear the advice, but I believe in that really strongly.
No, I agree with you.
You make your own things happen.
Daryl, Ramon, anything you guys want to bring up that maybe I'm missing? Because we've talked about NIL on a multitude of levels. We've even talked about a buyout system at the top level. So anything you guys want to add or ask Bill?
quick. The reason I initiated, or I'm initiating the classroom work for parents, is because two things just happened to me and my son through our high school college football career, and not being aware, you may make a mistake that you don't even know that you're making, or you may miss an opportunity that you don't even know. The first was when I was at Butler University, coming as a freshman, football player, full scholarship. Had a very freshman-like first year, practice, not playing much, getting bored with it. We come into the end of the year and we have to re-sign our scholarship papers. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I thought this was a 4-year deal. Why do I have to re-sign this again? So I'm hesitant right there. Then I look at the paper and I see a number that didn't match the number that I had last year. So I'm saying, now they took money away? So I'm not going to sign it. I'm about to call my mom and be like, hey, look, I'm about to pack up and I'm coming back to Gary. And the coach knew I wasn't about to sign it. So they kind of explained it to me, which is something I had no idea. They said, hey, your school is completely paid, Stallings. You this year somehow got some grant money. And since at that time we hadn't turned Division One yet, we were going to turn Division One. So he was able to manipulate money for 1 year to give my best friend some money and supplement scholarship and grant money to still keep me on full ride. Right. So I didn't know that or understand that they were playing with that 1 year D2, carry money over so they can keep a kid and then back to normal when we go FCS the next year. I almost walked.
Wow.
But those are the type of things that, the common parent don't understand and can make a bad decision, because I almost made one. The second one is my son coming out of high school, the mid conference up here. He's top 2 in tackles, undersized edge rusher, went to Ball State, had a very freshman-like year. Super intelligent kid, but got to Ball State and decided he wanted to do a little extracurricular partying. Grade Suffolk. So we sent him to Lackawanna College, JUCO, for a semester. They end up being in the national championship team, but end up being runner-up national championship. But the problem came, or not a problem, the non-education of parents. And I was educated at the time because I was coaching football. I already played. But me and my ex-wife, her husband, were all sitting there. And she asked, how many kids like my son do you have here that play Division I football that was all state, blah, 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 on your roster? And the guy looked at her and I shook my head. And he was like, ma'am, we're one of the top 5 JUCOs in the nation. These are all bounce backs. We have 105 kids who've played Division I football. Your son is a linebacker. In the linebacker room, we have a kid from James Madison, University of Kentucky, University of Cincinnati. It's like, and I knew it because I picked the school for a certain reason. And so these kids and these parents have to know what they're walking into. They got to know and understand the scholarship arrangement at the different levels. Hey, when you're looking at NAIA versus D3, one's got a package money, one can give you money.
Yeah.
D2, they got so many scholarships, but they can split them up. So your package may be different from year to year. D1, it's faster for family. You're going to get full ride or you're going to be a walk-on. The different things. You're going to JUCO. Hey, I'm a freshman out of high school going to JUCO in football, but shoot, they got 9 kids from the SEC on this team and 10 from the Big Ten and 15 from the ACC. So you being Indiana All-Star don't really mean anything. This dude played in the SEC for 2 years. And so those are the type of things that I don't think parents are completely aware of. They're naive to think that, hey, this world is just an incoming freshman to college football or college basketball or baseball, or whatever.
No, I think, as I said before, it's not only a good idea, it's necessary.
I got a little commentary here regarding that piece. We talked about these young men who are not getting those scholarship offers from the obviously Division I, obviously the Michigans, the Ohio States, the Bamas of the world. So maybe that opportunity for those JUCOs and those NAIAs or your better opportunities as a fringe player who would have maybe came to one of those big schools and sat for a year or two, as opposed to going to an NAIA school or Division two or JUCO and say, I'm going to make my mark here. And to that point, I'm going to get better. It's not about, what school I'm at. Am I getting better? Because no matter what school you go to, every player that goes to Ohio State on a scholarship doesn't get drafted in the NFL. Okay. So what about me getting better and honing my craft? And then 2 years in, then you see where you stand, right? Maybe there's an opportunity that didn't present itself when you were 18, but now you're 20. And obviously you've got that graduate year now that's in play now. There's an opportunity for these young men if there's patience. And now think about this: when we were all 18 or 19, Isaiah, that wasn't long ago for you. But did we have any patience at 18 or 19? No, not at all.
No.
So that's why Ramon's point in that education piece is so critical. Because if you imagine if you get that in your brain, that patience level, you'd be surprised how many of these young men could go on to not just great football or basketball careers, but great careers, period, because they've seen the ability, the work that needed to be taking place to get where they want to go.
And even, I'm even when I got to IU East to be the announcer there, to broadcast every game, soccer, volleyball, basketball, all those sports for a full year. I kind of went into the same approach as high school, right? And I didn't understand, no, this is a college under the IU branch. You have to look a certain way, present yourself a certain way. It wasn't just high school where I wouldn't say it wasn't like, I wanted to do it for a living, but I think, it's that step up. People talk about, when you go from high school sports to college sports, it's just like that in college with whatever you do, whether it's nursing or whatever career you're going for, you got to take that extra step. And I think in the years that I've been there, especially those first 2 years, I was told by kind of like my teacher there at IU East, he's like, you're not going to get this the first year, and you may not even get this the second year, because you're supposed to learn. This is supposed to be a learning curve. But by that junior and senior year, that's where you take that leap. That's where you take that jump in maturity, how you handle yourself, and how you, whether that's on the field or in the broadcast booth, you're supposed to take that next step in that time. And I think that's the same way with athletes. And Ramon, I think you brought it up too. That freshman year, it's a learning curve for everyone. Some people get it, and most people do not get it. It takes them a while to adjust to that college level. And then by the sophomore year, you're starting to figure it out. But then that junior, senior year is where you really excel. And I think I said it on the pod. Go lower than, don't rush for D1 right away, because most of the time you're at the bottom of the food chain now, right? Unless, like Bill said, unless you're like a top 50 player, they're looking at D1, then D2, then NAIA, and then JUCO, and then probably high school kids. So don't rush to get to D1. Go play NAIA, go play Division II NCAA, because even if you stay there and say you're an all-conference player or the leading in points at that university, there's a good chance you can go overseas and play pro, and then maybe you get some NBA looks as well. So that's kind of my biggest thing, is don't rush to D1 if you're in high school right now, or if you're that senior about to go to college. But also, don't take too long of those offers, because college coaches, like Ramon said, they can pull and make those changes whenever they feel like it. And then, fellas, we've got about 5 minutes left in the segment here. I do want to end a little earlier, so that way we can thank Bill for joining us off recording. But I do want to let you all get your final statements in before we wrap this segment up.
Okay, my piece is simple. Bill, this can't be your last time on.
No, it was great having you on.
Thank you, Cott. That's very kind.
Sure,
I would enjoy it.
I got a couple wrap ups. All right.
Okay.
I tell kids, memories over money. Memories over money.
Yep.
That's what your college career has to be about. Memories over money. Second of all, I tell them, you don't choose the division chooses you. You're not going to say, I'm going here, here, here. No, they're going to say, this is where you should probably be. This is where you should probably. Now, you can work your process, but ultimately it's going to choose you. Yep. All right. And third, Kyle, if you ever mention Ohio State's name in vain again, man, boy, I will come through the screen and get you.
I knew that was coming.
OHIO.
Bill, the violence is real in the field here.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Bill, do you have any final remarks before we wrap this up? Once again, thank you for joining us, and also tell people where they can find Cascade Hoops Talk as well.
Well, two quick things as a wrap up. First, the best advice I give young people, or the best advice I like to give young people looking to go to college and play ball, is go somewhere where you would be happy without athletics. Just kind of build on that memories before money thing.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing is the best thing about a freshman is he's going to be a sophomore. The Cascade Hoops Talk, I'm on Twitter under Cascade Hoops Talk, YouTube, just look Cascade Hoops Talk, Spotify, Cascade Hoops Talk. If you just go to Google and type Cascade Hoops Talk, all the different podcast sites will come in. Also, when the season is active, we do, what's it called? Substack. Just search Cascade Hoops Talk. And I go dormant in the off season, and I actually have to do all my honeydews. But thank you very much, you guys. I've really enjoyed it.
It was a pleasure having you on. And I also want to tell our audience as well, the Game Time podcast is now available on Spotify. The last 2 YouTube uploads are on Spotify now. So if you want to watch those on Spotify, you can now listen to that, and is also on YouTube Music as well. And then Cascade Hoops Talk, I'll have the YouTube link and his Twitter link in the description of the YouTube video. But that is going to do it. We do have more coming up here, but that is going to do it today with Cascade Hoops Talk. Bill, thank you for joining me, Daryl and Ramon, but that's going to do it. We've got more coming up right here on the Game Time Podcast.